Welcome to the Kirana Podcast, a show about what you will find, what you will not find in the Cook Islands. And now here's your host, Chantal Napa.
Kia rana, kia koto katoto, nokone ia mato ki te warawaro Rarotonga Cook Islands. This is your host, Chantal Napa. Welcome back to Kia Rana Podcast. I was introduced to our guest today, Rangi Mitaera Johnson, last week by a businessman, a local businessman here, Rohan Ellis. Rohan Ellis was like, Chantal, you need to, podcast this lady, Rangi. She's a local chef, etc., etc. So, but thank you. So I got introduced to you, Rangi. I had, and you didn't know that I actually had no idea who you were. But then I was listening to you just when we were talking about before. Yes, let's record, next week. I went, I think I know who this person is, right, in that world, the food world. And now I'm going to get to sit with you next week, which we're doing today.
Mm-hmm.
So from the research, everyone, Rangi is amazing, because I was just saying to her, I've been doing some research on you. You are all over the internet, like freelance chef, Pearl Farmer, artisan, scholarships, professional Polynesian dancer in your youth. I read about that. So I am so privileged and pleased. Thank you so much for sitting down with me on Kia Rana Podcast, Rangi.
Thank you for having me here, me taki mata.
Thank you. So one of the things, I have no idea where to start, eh? So can you please take me on a journey? Because I have been reading about it, but this is for our listeners. Take me on a journey of, where shall we start? Let's just, your love of food, and you chose to go and get trained after your office job. You're like, nah, this is not me.
Mm-hmm.
And you go with your passion.
Yeah. So when I was growing up as a young girl, and I grew up in New Zealand, my mother was pretty good in the kitchen. So we would always be surrounded with food. And as Cook Islanders, as Polynesians, we have events that we cater for and partake in at different levels. So I was always part of that, because my mother said that's your responsibility. Okay, then, so you carry your own cross and move ahead. And then I became interested in a lot more. I started off, I finished college quite early, and I had enough of college. I thought that was it. I can come back to it later whenever I feel like it. So I got my office job and did little bits and pieces and traveled around to different places around the world, came back home and thought, the passion for cooking is still burning. So I said to my sister, who was an academic at that time, I really want to study. She said, okay, right, do it now. So I did it. And I took up full-time study at Wellington Polytechnic, and my journey began there. As soon as I started studying, my first week in studying, one of my tutors said to me, oh, would you be interested in a part-time job? And I said, oh, yes. And I thought it might be just waitressing, because this tutor was the restaurant tutor. But after the interview, I said, okay, so what time do I come, and do I just wear a skirt and a white shirt? And he says, you're wearing your whites. You are cooking in the kitchen. I thought, oh, wow, here we go. And my first job was working in a Lebanese restaurant, and on a Friday night, which is the busiest night in any restaurant. And as soon as I started, we had 80 orders in front of us. And I just smiled from ear to ear, because everything was in front of everyone, the kitchen. So we were a bit of the showcase thing where we prepared the meals in front of our guests, and I was standing there thinking, oh my God, if there's any time I need help, it's like right now. Before the interview, my boss said to me, look, I'll give you 2 weeks, and if you're okay with it, and if we think you're okay, but 2 weeks, and we'll come back to you, and and we'll say, you can stay on. I said, oh, okay then. So after the first night, he said to me, by the way, you've got the job. And I said, oh, but the 2 weeks is, he said, don't worry about the 2 weeks, you've got the job. So I took it on from there, and he owned another cafe in Wellington, which was also one of the very first cafes, when the cafes.
How long ago was this
This
approximately,
was
Rangi?
in the early 90s. So yeah, so I was working in there and working in the Lebanese restaurant, and I took up another job. So I actually had 3 jobs as well as studying. So I worked in the Lebanese restaurant on the weekend. In the mornings I did the cafe, and at night I worked in this fine dining restaurant. So I was like running around like an idiot. Yeah.
And all food,
Yeah, it's all food. But it's crazy, but most chefs understand this, that you work 90 hours and that's the norm. Yeah. You bust your gut. You may have a day off, but it's all part and parcel, and you love it. It drives you nuts. It's crazy, but you love it. So that was my life for a while. My parents had already retired from New Zealand and had returned here to build a house for us. And at that stage, my older sister said to me, I think that you need to maybe go back to Rarotonga and look after mum and dad, because you don't have a life. And I said, oh yeah, just give, and you need to look after mum and dad. I said, oh, okay then. So as soon as I came back here, I literally slept for 2 weeks because I was so exhausted. And I started working when Club Raro first opened up, and I saw a job and I wanted to be a receptionist. So I just have a pause from the kitchen and go back onto the office work. So I thought, oh, I can do that. And then they looked at my CV and said, no, you're going in the kitchen. Well, not really in the kitchen. So I became the food and beverage manager.
Was I reading that online 1997?
I think so.
And
yes.
I was reading that, and then yeah.
And then after that, I became the
food and beverage. And how old were you?
Executive chef.
Yeah, how old were you?
In my 30s. Yeah, maybe 31. Yeah.
What made you think that you're going to work at reception? What made you think that?
Yeah. So then it all began. And unlike New Zealand, working here in Rarotonga means that you still have that quality of life.
Yes.
You still have your parents living in a wonderful environment, but you are still busy clicking the hours. So when you get back home, it's not that, how do I say, exhausting. It's still a lot more pleasurable because you are here at home, which is great.
And the travel's not so, what I mean?
It's like, not traveling for an hour or half an hour. It's not cold and blustery winds and layers of clothing and popping pills so that you can, get through that shift and not breathe all the germs all over the food. Yeah. And so in New Zealand, it's hard because, if you don't have your own transport, then you need to find transport. And lucky I lived close to my work, so it wasn't too hard. So I literally just zip down and zip back up, and at night I'll just catch a ride home with some friends. But yeah, that was the one of the things. And because our winters aren't really that cold.
They're beautiful, aren't they?
Yeah.
Our winters.
Yeah,
you're really right. Like, you're right. I mean, spot on there, eh? I've been home 15 years now, and I'm like, I ain't going nowhere.
No, yeah. And after living, around in a few places.
And I have,
There's nowhere else that I'd rather be. Yeah. So so I stayed here and did that for a while.
At Club Raro.
Yeah. And then I had my son a few years later. And he's now studying at Otago University, and his father passed away. So that was okay. And my sister decided that she wanted to bring him up. So which was really cool. And she said, it doesn't change anything. You're still his mum.
Yes.
She said, well, I'm his mum, but you'll just be his mummy.
And culturally, that's acceptable in our culture.
Yes.
Which some people don't understand.
Yeah,
But
I mean, it has its good and its bad sides, but you just need to be reminded to balance it up every now and then and not let things slip into an area where it's not so comfortable. Yeah, so I have a very, very comfortable and loving relationship with my sister. So
is she this academic one that you were saying?
yes,
The one that's sent you.
social work is her area of expertise. So yes, and she brought my eldest son up.
Yeah, and what did he decide to go and
He's doing his master's now in research and medicine.
my eyebrows just went up, everybody. His master's.
So he's 24 this year. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Proud mama.
So that's really cool. And then I moved to Manihiki in 2000.
I was reading that.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize you were a pearl farmer.
Yes.
Right.
So,
Manihiki, everybody
yeah.
who's listening to this is like far north of the Cook Islands. Please continue.
So I actually went there because at that time in my life, both my parents had passed on and I was with my son, and my son's father had passed on. So I decided that I needed to step outside and do something a little bit different. So a job was advertised in Manihiki on a farm for someone to cook and clean for the workers and other technicians as well. So I thought, I'm going to do this because my dad's from Manihiki and I really need to find my way there and just see, so a bit of a pilgrimage sort of thing for me. And yeah, that's what I did. And at that time, my son was about 14 months old.
Did you take him with you?
Yes, I took him with me. Yeah, I took him with me to Manihiki, and I said, I can come if my son can come. And then my boss said, look, that's fine, as long as you can look after him. I said, no, he's fine. He's easy. I can do it. I'm Wonder Woman.
Yes, you are. So you get to Manihiki, you've got this 14-month-old child.
Yeah.
You got to cook and clean for like all these pearl workers, farm workers. Yeah. And can you just tell me about Manihiki? I've never been there.
Okay. So Manihiki is a really isolated island. I mean, it's geographically, it's kind of just below, very, very north of the Cook Islands. It's 4 hours by bandy plane, 2 hours and 10 minutes or 15 minutes on a jet to get there. And it's got a big fat lagoon in the middle that Rarotonga can fit in. So it's got little islets scattered around. It's got 2 villages, and your form of transportation is a boat, one side to another, as well as motorbikes. By the way, I don't drive a motorbike. I just stick to the 4 wheels. Yeah. So yeah, the island at that time was very, very heavily involved in pearl farming. Yeah. So I went there and a newbie and looked at the place and oh gosh, I thought, oh, what have I done? But never mind, just go with the flow, and you can do anything. You've come this far. You can.
How
do
many
anything.
people do you remember were there? Because everyone listening, maybe you're doing the math. Her son is 24 now. He's doing his master's. He was 14 months old when she took him.
Yeah.
So we're talking 22 and a half years ago.
Yeah.
That Rangi is taking us back.
Yeah.
To this story in Manihiki.
At that time, there were roughly on the island about 900 people. Yeah, divided in 2 communities. The industry was really at its height, where people were coming back, Manihikans were coming back from New Zealand to get into this thing of making some money. And yeah, they didn't have a lot of skills, but they were interested. And because it's their birthright, they belong to Manihiki, you can get a license to farm, a permit. So everyone was coming back and getting into the water and buying boats, and so it's really expensive to live there because of its isolation. Food has to be transported by cargo ship, and if you're not going to go by plane there, then you have to go by ship, and the ship at that time, tapis, take maybe a week to get up there. So if you get seasick, then you just have to be very patient. Yeah, so I get there and it's so hot. The first thing, it's so hot. I've never felt the heat like that before.
Because they're closer to the
They're
equator?
closer to the equator, so they just have one season all year round. Really, it's just summer. It's not a humid heat like Rarotonga. It's that dry.
Yeah, dry. Arid.
Heat. Yeah.
Yeah.
And because it's a coral atoll, it's the glare from the sand.
Yes,
gosh. Yeah. And in Manihiki,
Yeah.
you can go through periods of drought.
Yeah,
So I remember one time we didn't have rain for about 7 months. Find that really hard, eh? Yeah. But we were lucky where we were staying because at the time we had a desalination unit.
Wow, right. 22.5 years ago.
Yes. So
thank goodness to have that desalination unit. Wow.
And we had another thing which we still have, it doesn't work anymore, we still have, was we had a satellite phone. So during Cyclone Martin, that was the satellite phone that was used to contact assistance.
Wow.
Because no one had, Manihiki was hit, all forms of communication were down. So we hooked up the satellite phone. I wasn't there.
So famous because Rachel Reeves wrote that book about Cyclone Martin.
So it was this satellite phone that was used to contact. So it was connected to a telephone in Australia. And so we contacted, my husband contacted people in Australia, friends, and said, hey, we've been hit. Can you call Rarotonga? Tell them that, I'll do the rest of it. So they did. And when they called, the person who answered, who I know who it is today, I might just think, wow, said, so if Manihiki's hit by a cyclone, so how did they contact you? Yeah. So
I don't know about satellite phones.
Yeah, satellite phone. So you need to be, when you live in Manihiki, you need to be multi-talented. You need to be the plumber, you need to be the electrician, you need to be Bob the Builder, as well as the diver and the fisherman. And if you can, be the planter. Yeah, because
I love it. I want to go.
Because shortages of food.
Yeah.
So moving on, later on, I married my boss. Yes. So his wife had left him, and the business was right up there. The pearls were just full on. And then later in 2000, we had a Vibrio outbreak. So in the lagoon, there was a disease that happened in the lagoon.
Yeah.
And that was because several factors: climate change, intense heat, not enough oxygen in the lagoon. People were putting their shells wherever they wanted, so there was no management plan as to how farming should be. There wasn't proper spacing of oysters, and lines, because it's like a filing cabinet in the lagoon. So there were heavily populated areas. The oysters weren't getting enough nutrients, enough food for them to grow, and it was just like a big pot of mess. What happens? A disease outbreak. So there was a high mortality rate. In some areas, not so bad. Because
you don't mean in humans, eh, Rangi?
No,
just for the listener. I know what you mean. You mean in the pearls, in the oysters.
Yeah, the livestock.
Yes.
Yeah, so there was a high mortality rate with the livestock. So something had to be done, and a lot of shells were brought out of the water that were dead. You can't leave them in there because they're just going to infect the rest of the oysters, because it's like one big bowl.
So I get it.
You get it?
Yes.
So if one oyster is sick or a whole lot in that area, you can bet your bottom dollar that the other oysters are going to get
social
infected.
distancing, eh?
Yeah.
So,
social
20 20 years, 23,
yeah.
of the livestock. Is what
So
you're saying.
following Cyclone Martin and following that incident, a lot of people
Martin.
left Manihiki because when Cyclone Martin happened, a lot of people left on the Hercules and never came back. And when the outbreak happened, a lot of people left because they felt like their form of revenue was no longer feasible. So they left. So it's dwindled down. Population now is maybe 170 if you're lucky. That's really small in both villages. Yeah. Pearl farming is no longer the core revenue on the island. It's working for government. A lot of people have moved away from it because they feel it's just a little bit too hard. It is hard work. It's dirty work. You have to commit long hours. You're in the water. When we're in the season of seeding oysters, it might be depends on how many oysters we have ready to seed. So oysters are like people, and when they reach maturity, then they're ready to be seeded. So we have to wait for the oysters to get to teenage status before we can introduce a bead into them. That kind of season, depending on how many oysters you have ready, it might take a couple of weeks to seed oysters or a month. In those days, we were seeding 10, 20, 50,000, 70,000 oysters, sometimes twice a year, or sometimes, if we're lucky, 3 times a year. Yeah, so it's a lot of work. Going in the water, lifting up shells on a rope with 10 oysters on them. It's heavy work with barnacles growing on them. You've got to chip them all, clean them all up, get them all ready, put them on the table for the technician to open them up and introduce a bead into. Then you got to put them back into the water and leave them down there for 18 months before you harvest them again. Yeah. So that whole thing just takes a lot of work, a lot of patience. So in Manihiki, you can't say go down the road and find your lunch. So when we get workers, we have to feed them. And we also bring in technicians from overseas. So when I first started there, we had 6, and then it went up to 8, and then it went up to 10 technicians that I had to look after. 10 technicians as well as workers. And so when you have a lot of technicians, it means it creates a lot of work. So you need a lot of labor. You need big boats, you need petrol, you need food to feed them, you need all the gear, you need the dive bottles. So we have a compressor, we have generators, backup generators. Power wasn't 24 hours. Power was 6 till 12, and then back again on at 6 till midnight if you're lucky. And in between, we would run a generator just to get to maybe 4 o'clock. So it's quite difficult. Yeah, a lot of money involved. We ship fuel up to Manihiki. We still do that. Bulk, so we buy by the drum. Today it's about 550 per drum. Then it might have been about 250. So we would buy maybe 10 drums at a time whenever a ship would come up. And the drum is for work, but it's also for fishing. You go out and fish as well on your boat. Yeah, you need to be able to maintain your outboard motor. Yeah, so there's a lot of skills involved. And if you come straight from New Zealand, you need to know how to ko anakari, husk a coconut, climb the tree, know how to use the food on the island, know how to go fishing, where to go fishing, all those kind of things. Manihiki doesn't have the dense soil like in Rarotonga. It's mostly sand, but there are some areas that have wari.
Yeah, so what you're saying is it's not that volcanic soil we have here.
It's coral.
It's coral.
Yeah.
So what do you plant?
Yeah. So you learn how to make several things with coconuts and things that that you can plant around your house.
Mm.
I'm fortunate,
Insane.
yeah, I'm fortunate that my husband is a bit of a planter. He used to work for agriculture over here in his younger days. So later on, he decided that he didn't want to miss out on bacon and eggs again. So he learnt how to make ham, and we had a little piggery.
Yes.
So we had started off maybe about 15 pigs, got up to 30 pigs, and we'd feed them with our scraps and akari. That was okay, coconuts. And then he wanted his eggs. I want my bacon and eggs because I was making the bread. So we decided to get some hens up there, and we had a poultry farm.
Oh, you mean you had to bring them in?
Yeah. So at one point we had 500 hens.
You had to bring them in. Where'd you bring them in from?
New Zealand. So you just have to work it up with agriculture and, you know, math and all of that, and coordinate everything from Auckland to Rarotonga to connect on a flight, and pati the pilot in Air Raro to bring your little chicks a day old on the plane that would come in a couple of boxes because they're so tiny, and put them on the flight. Set them up there. So we can get there. Yeah. So my kids grew up feeding the pigs and feeding the hens and collecting eggs, washing them and selling them. And so my husband had bacon and eggs for breakfast every day. Yeah. It's a bit of,
I'm in awe.
yeah, it's an interesting life. You have to be pretty resilient, and there's a lot of adapting you have to do. So you need to look at things a little bit differently. Okay, you know, and I came from New Zealand.
Yeah, Wellington, New Zealand,
where I love my yogurt and my pears and my apples, and I had to change it for uto and akari and blue, which wasn't so bad actually. Yeah, it's quite good. So yeah, you learn as you go along. Yeah. And my dad here was a planter, and we always had taro and ruko, and because he's up in Tapaine, and I always had toto and all of that stuff. So that was me growing up here. So going up to Manihiki and doing that, and then, you know, getting into the piggery and making the ham and that. So we were able to feed our technicians really well. He used to have 2 people working, cleaning the house and one cooking. Of course, I did both. Yeah, I took on both roles. I said, yeah, I can do that. That's all right. It's all right. I'm silly now, so I'm young and silly, so let's just do it. Yeah. So
I'm young and silly now.
Yeah.
So just do it.
Just do it. Well, I can.
Yeah,
do it.
well, I can.
Yeah.
Right.
But just I'm not afraid of hard work. Let's just get it done. So it's hard, long nights, but
and you would have had access, because I was reading something else, Rangi, in your, you know, or your online, about the pearl meat ceviche style recipe.
Yeah.
That you have.
Yes.
And so I'm just connecting that to the Manihiki days. Yeah.
So I always try to do something a little bit different with the food, and just learning. And I mean, my husband's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to things like that, and because he's from there, you know, knows a lot more than I do. But I always want to try something different. So I have this little canapé that I've created with uto pancakes, little ones, and then I do a little slice of tuna sashimi on top, and then I do a little wasabi mayo on top. Yeah. And the ceviche pearl meat is just the white button part of the pearl meat that I slice very thinly, and then I just put it through a very simple marinade, and it's eaten really well with thin things like micro herbs, finely diced spring onions, and yeah, not too much flavor, because it's got a beautiful flavor. Yeah, it's got a delicate flavor, a cross between New Zealand pāua and scallops.
Thank you for that explanation of the taste of it.
Yeah, so it's delicate.
For the listener. And that, I mean, you would have had, I just heard thousands of pearls. So
Yes.
you would have been, while you were living there, doing so much, many different things with all of that pearl meat.
Yes. Yeah. So that was that side of it. So we use the pearl meat sometimes just to.
Then you put that in the Mea Kai cookbook.
Yeah. So yeah, later on,
Wow.
coming back here, a friend of mine, Sylvia George, who now lives in Australia and owns a company with her partner, Mai Tai Sportswear, asked me if I could hook up with Robert Oliver that came over here to.
Yeah. I brought you from Manihiki back to now to Rara, but that was amazing, Rangi. Thank you. Like, I could go on the whole episode about Manihiki, like how amazing.
That's a chapter in
That's the chapter. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, please continue with the
Mea Kai.
Yes.
So Robert Oliver's first cookbook. Robert Oliver's background is owning restaurants in the West Indies as well as the States. Very well known, and he wanted to do a cookbook with recipes from the region, the Pacific region. So she wanted to hook up with a few local women over here, and because we were good friends, we used to work together at Club Raro, and I was one of her bosses. So she said, "Will you do it?" And I said, "Yeah, okay, fine. I got a bit of time. I'd just come down from Manihiki for a little while." I said, "Yeah, I can do that." She said, "Would you be able to provide some, different ingredients?" And I said, "Well, actually, I can. I do have some stuff right here." So I had in the cookbook, I think I have about 4 or 5 recipes. I'm the only person who has that many recipes in that cookbook. So most of the recipes are food from Manihiki. So I've got a paua. I've got a paua dish that I add a bit of Asian fusion to it. It's just it's kind of pressure cooked and then tossed in some sesame oil and soy sauce and just a few simple herbs. Yeah. And then I do the oyster meat ceviche style, and then I show the uto pancake. And yeah. Then I do a fish tunuturu and a few other things. Yeah. So from that time till now, Robert Oliver and I have been very, very close friends. We also did a series filming here in the Cook Islands, kind of similar to the food revolution, before food revolution. So it was going around different islands showcasing food in the Cook Islands. So I did that one as well with him here. Our next project, which we just did last year, an online cookbook. Yes. So I've contributed to that as well, a few recipes that I just kind of made up. They ended up tasting quite nice. Yeah. So yeah. So that's my little relationship with Robert Oliver. And since then, I've also been working with a few other people. Tourism Cook Islands call on me now and then and ask me to do a bit of work. And we had a little project called Takurua.
I was reading about that.
Yes.
Yes.
So we hope to kick it off again, a food festival.
Yeah, I was reading about
that. And it's all, Takurua is all about elevating our food here in the Cook Islands, and trying to introduce it a little bit more onto menus.
Yeah, I was reading about that. I mean, it's like introducing to traditional foods which have historical connections to us.
I have this theory that I can't say for any other Pacific Islanders, but for me as a Cook Islander, that we are connected to our land. We are also connected to our food. That's what I believe. And then I also believe that the foods that God provided for us on this island are for us, not foods outside, but here. So we have this bounty of food on land and in the sea that belongs to us, that is for us.
Totally.
So when we start eating outside,
Yep.
that's when things go wrong.
Yep.
That's when diseases start happening, because we focus too much now on introduced foods, imported foods, and we've forgotten that we have our own local food. So food before was eaten for purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't devoured for pleasure. Food was medicine.
Medicine and fuel.
Yes. So you ate that because it's that time of the year, or that time of the month, or that season.
Yeah.
So you need to protect your body internally, externally. So you need to eat this, this, and this.
Totally.
Yeah. But we've forgotten that.
Yeah.
And because we think that papa'a food is so glamorous, and it is glamorous, and that we need to just keep on eating it. But we need to remember and respect that our own food is so worthy. Yeah. And it is there. It will always be there right to the end. Papa'a food will come in and it will go. Come in and will die. But our food will always remain there. The only difference that I can see now is that a lot of the foods we used to eat as kids, we don't eat them anymore. Hardly anyone eats the marbles and all those other little fruits and things. You on the way to school you pick these fruits at so and so's house, and it's a story.
True.
It was a whole life
True.
of going to auntie's place, picking the fruit on the way to school, and then going to the next house and picking that, and going to the next house, and on the way back home you come back home and you go through the creeks and everything. That was life. You don't do that. You go to the shop, and you pick up twisties and then a fizzy drink, and you go to school and you're still hungry. Yeah. So that's where I am. I like to utilize a lot of local foods in my menus. I like to when I'm talking with people or introducing or customizing menus, I like to suggest those sort of things.
Yeah, because here in this article, chefs that I was reading, Chefs for Development.
Yes.
It says, you said, that we need to encourage and develop, and share our local food knowledge that connects each and every one of us to so many facets. And, the area includes agriculture, health, climate change, culture, tourism, education, trade and investment, transport, everything. And you're right. I'm 100% with you, agreeing that these foods are part of our personal identity, and that their past and history will enrich. Yeah, I'm totally with you on that, actually. And then I think that's because I only spent 3 years here growing up in the 80s, which was 1982, 83, 84, 85. In Rarotonga with my grandparents, and my grandfather, my mum's dad, is Papa Napa. So for that 3 years that I lived here, from 1, 2, 3, with my relatives in the West, we were planting because Papa Napa was planting.
Oh, yeah.
And you're right, like we just ate everything that we planted. Yeah. And you just got used to, like, we ate the purple eggplant at this time of the year. And then that's all we ate. Yeah. And we ate it in soups, and then we ate it pan fried, then we ate it baked, then we ate it, right? Yeah. And then it's like, oh, those are gone now. Now we're in beans, Yeah. Oh, those are gone now. Now it's tomatoes. Yeah. Oh, okay, now those are gone now. And you make your relish and your this and your that, and then now it's corn. Yeah. Now it's mangoes, now it's this, now it's that. Yeah. And we were healthy when you think about it. Right. We were healthy, and we were moving, and we were strong. Walking, we were strong, running, climbing. Yeah. And it's been a long time since I've had a home chicken.
Yeah.
Right. I
Yeah.
do remember that we used to do it,
Mm.
and they tasted good.
Yeah. So as a result, all of my kids have been brought up going fishing. They go out with their dad at night. Sometimes my daughter still goes out with my husband spearfishing at night.
Wow.
My kids, yeah. So they're used to, and whenever I want, I need two coconuts. Can you husk them and grate them for me? I need to get them more. See, they can do that.
Yeah.
Not many kids know how to do that, so they know that. But they have to. When you live in Manihiki, you have to know all these things. And they also know how to speak their own language. So that was one of the other things that I wanted them to learn their own language from their own island, and not be a foreigner on their own island. Yeah. So yeah, they've grown up and they're most of them are in their 20s now. I have 4 children, and my youngest is 18. She's just finished college. So I'm glad they've got all those little things behind them, because I look at some kids now, there's a gap. There's a huge gap. They don't know how to do basic things. They wouldn't be able to survive. They don't know how to identify what that tree is. They don't identify what fish are. Yeah. So yeah, and as a result, they know how to cook.
And they know like how to look around them.
Yeah.
And go, okay, so I can see spinach and I can see this and that. And what can we make with what we got around us? What can we make with what we've got around us?
And that's how we lived in Manihiki. So we had a little garden where we would have a few things in the garden, and it was just to sustain us, because we wanted set life. My husband wanted bacon eggs. We did the pigs and we did the hens. We wanted salads and vegetables and a tiopu. So we had a garden outside. So we could go out there and end up feeding the village. Yeah, or whatever. Come and get your bok choy. There's a whole field of them there. Cabbage. I have my own herbs in the garden. Tipuro grows really well up there. And then we just go and get fish. So later on, when the technicians started dying down, we couldn't get them to come back in big numbers anymore. We couldn't, the oysters weren't growing up to the numbers that they used to. And we built a big house there. So I ended up being an accommodator. Yeah. So we have a 12-bedroom home. In Manihiki. Yeah. With 6 bathrooms.
12 bedrooms.
So
you could be like in a bedroom a month in your house.
Yeah.
On January, I'm in this is my January room. This is my February room. This is my March room.
Well, my husband had other plans. He said he wanted
12 children.
12 children. So whatever. Yeah, good luck. This office was closed.
I've never met anyone, I think, with 12 bedrooms.
No.
Had 6 bathrooms. So yeah, so you became an accommodator.
Yeah, so we would look after mostly government visitors, groups like that.
Of course.
Because they would come and
Need somewhere to stay.
in groups of maybe 5 or 6 or 8 or whatever. Or, telecom in the days, would come up every now and then, so we would host them. And because we had to provide food
and cook for them. Yeah.
So voila. And it's not choose from the menu. It's tonight we're having this.
Yes.
Yeah. But I would always make sure in the morning. I mean, I know that most of we get fed better in Manihiki than they did over here. But we'd always have like bacon and eggs or sausages or that we'd made, or the breakfast and freshly baked bread or muffins or scones and that. And then lunch would be a packed lunch or something, and dinner would be fish and some meat and whatever from the garden we could organize. Or else my husband would go out, mararo, and the boys would go with him, come back straight on the fire, tunu, bang, that was our dinner. Yeah. Because in Manihiki, it doesn't take long to get flying fish. You just go out, not even an hour, and come back with about 300 mararo. So they'll go for a ride, just come back,
for a ride.
and then you'd bring out, okay, put the fire on, we're on the way back. So boom, get it all ready, and then bang, straight on. Yeah. kids get the moinate ready, everything. I have the kinaki all done. Okay, that's our okay. Have a salad, a few bits and pieces. Yeah, so from that we had quite a few people come over. But there might be an opportunity for that to occur again with the development of the airport in Manihiki. So we'll
I
see.
heard about that only because one of my cousins is involved. And they, he said it's an 8-month projected, an 8-month job to go up. And I was really interested. Like, I was just having a conversation yesterday with my cousin about that, who's possibly going for this 8-month job for the airport. So is it a coral? Of course it's a coral strip, right?
Yeah.
Of course it is.
It's already there, it just needs to be sealed.
Wow. Yeah. And then that's why only Air Rarotonga kind of goes there, right?
Yes. And the Hercules.
So is it a long strip?
It's a long strip.
Obviously for a Hercules.
Yeah, it's just that it's
coral.
Yeah, and it needs to be sealed so that you could have take the other plane up, not the bandy, the other one. It's got more seats on it.
Oh yeah, the one that's going to Tahiti at the moment.
Yeah.
Backwards and forwards.
And that way they'll have a fuel depot up. There's no fuel depot up there at the moment.
Yeah.
So fuel has to be transported.
Yeah.
That's why we have sometimes big gaps with no flights because there's no fuel. You have to wait till the fuel gets up there. Yeah. But in between all of that,
that's not a problem though when you think about. I'm saying it's not a problem. Of course, it's a problem, but like, wow, that remoteness just kind of for me makes it even more appealing.
Yes, it does.
Kind of makes it even more.
It's amazing. It's
appealing.
An amazing place, beautiful place. But you've got to be prepared for if you go up there and then there's no food, like not enough food on the island. Families are already strict. They have their we know how to tapora ake. We really know how to preserve things, stretch it. Sometimes when food gets up there, it's already expired. But what do we do? Because you can't send it back. Because then you're still without anything. So we find a way to, like some of them have got weevils inside, like rice. So we put rice, we just put it out in the sun. When you put it out in the sun, everything just goes, bing, bing, jumps off. Sift it all out, wash it, pack it, put it away. Yeah. You know how to, just preserve things and make it stretch a little bit further. Just go back to old ways, of making food. Gas, you got to take gas bottles up, heaps of gas bottles, or do the umu and tunu.
Yeah, but then even when you take the gas bottles up, there's no refill station.
Yeah.
So,
you send it up and send it down, send it up. That's what we do, just back and forth. But I noticed when we went up about a year and a half ago, we preferred to cook outside. Yeah. And not use the gas, just cook outside. Lovely. Yeah. We went back up and had a look at the house. So we're planning on going back up to renovate our house again, just touch up a few areas and see what's available for accommodation. But before I came back down to Rarotonga, so I came back into Rarotonga about 2015 to put my kids through secondary school. Yeah, they were at that age. Well, my eldest daughter was already here, and she came down to go to school, stayed with different families, and because she was a sailor. Yeah, so she became a competitive sailor and did pretty well. And
did you want to tell me about that?
So she was one of the top sailors here in Rarotonga, represented the Cook Islands several times, different places all around China,
that was your
in the States. So she's 22 now. 21. She's 21. and she also was part of the crew that brought back the vaka from New Zealand. Yeah, she was about 17 years old then. She was the youngest crew member. There were about, I think, 3 other female crew, but she would be one of the most experienced sailors out of the whole lot of them. So that was really interesting for her. It was an eye-opener for her. And because she's quite quiet, she said it was quite interesting.
And
she saw how she was ignored because she was female and her age. Her experience in sailing was not recognized until later. Until later. Yeah, so they had to call on her every now and then. But she knew how to tie ropes and things like that pretty fast. She could jump, and yeah, so it was quite interesting. Then they came back, some of the crews kind of pulled me aside and said, "You should be really proud of your daughter. She's an amazing young lady." Yeah.
And you're like, well, I am, so I'm glad you've seen it now, So what's your daughter's name with the
Helene Johnson.
Helene Johnson.
Yeah. So that was really cool. I really wanted her to take it a little bit further. We suggested to her to get her captain's license, go to New Zealand. She wasn't. She's at that point where she's kind of like had enough of sailing for a little while.
Yeah.
But every time she goes back out on the water, she loves it. So, well, you know where you belong. Yeah.
On it, in it.
Yeah, with it.
Surrounded by it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think as a little girl, from a young age, before she could even walk, she was out there on the water with her dad and the boys on the boats, going on the lines and even diving in the water.
True.
So that's her.
Yeah.
All my kids are like that, which is fun. It's great.
Yes.
Yeah. So just trying to see where your next chapter goes.
Yeah.
I said, don't rush, but hurry up.
Don't rush, but hurry up.
Don't wait till it's too late and then there was an opportunity for her to work with some crew in the America's Cup, but she didn't see the value in it at the time. My father and I were jumping up and down, kicking ourselves, hitting our head on the wall. No one gets an opportunity like that. No one has ever had an opportunity like that in the Cook Islands. Yeah, that's okay.
That's all right, Helene. We love you. Mama loves you. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. So today I'm just a freelance chef.
Yeah, you're a freelance chef, and I was doing some more scope, Rangi. Like in 1997, a scholarship from the Dutch government to do hotel management in the Hague.
Yes.
Go.
Yeah, it's quite funny. I found out about it on the last day that your application had to be submitted. So I rushed it through, put it in, and I was accepted. So I had to fly from here to Tahiti to LA, and then from LA to Frankfurt, and Frankfurt to Holland. Yeah, so
in 1997.
Yeah.
Please tell me.
Yeah. It was a great opportunity. It was with industry people from all over the world. So it was either housekeeping or front office and not really housekeeping, front office management or food and beverage people. And it was about just fine-tuning the skills in those areas. Yeah. Just all management stuff.
How long were you there for?
Oh, not very long, for a couple of months.
Yeah, a couple of months. Wow.
Yeah, and then I came back home.
Wow.
Yeah, it's great. Great to see that side of it.
Yeah, I mean that's 26 years ago.
You know?
Wow.
Come back.
Holland,
Yeah.
I mean, not many Cook Islanders you would have met up there then.
Actually, I've got an aunt that lives there. So I met up
Is
with
that the Tikito aunt?
yes, yes.
We all know this auntie.
Yes,
That's
Auntie
my cousin
Bibi.
Estelle's auntie.
Yeah.
That's how I know it's the Tikito auntie.
Yes. Yeah, that's Chris Maru's mum. Yeah. So
I'm related to Estelle on her mum's side
oh, okay.
because her mother is a Napa.
Yes.
So Estelle's mum and my mum are sisters.
Oh, okay.
And so Estelle's dad, that's his sister,
Oh,
the
okay.
Holland sister.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's her auntie, and that's her first cousin too. So
Yeah.
that's how I know about this one
Mm.
lady. And I just met her aunt. She came down last year from Holland.
Yes. Yes.
And I was introduced by Estelle to her Holland auntie.
Yeah. 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 So I stayed with them for a little while before I came back, which was really great. And then came back through New Zealand, met my sister, stayed over there for a little, and came back home to my parents.
Yeah.
Yeah, a good opportunity. Wish we had more opportunities like that for our people to go overseas. But I've noticed that well, so the other things that I've also done in between that
Yeah, please.
is when I was in Manihiki is that I worked for Marine Resources for a short time under contract. So it was kind of like a support officer for the pearl industry and providing business support for them. But it also developed into an area where I actually translated scientific data into the local dialect. So just explaining the conditions of the lagoon.
Yes.
And because we had certain areas in the lagoon that were named, and everyone knew those names. So if you were in that area and a problem would be occurring, then we just needed to alert everybody. At that time, most people were on email, so it would come in the form of an email. Also, just bringing farmers up. Well, they knew how to farm, but we wanted to connect the farming and the science. So just to strengthen them, yeah. So it's a bit of capacity building at that level and capacity building on the business side of things. So that's what I was doing. It was very interesting because later on I was trained in different areas as well because I was working for Marine Resources and got to do a bit of traveling as well because of my position. And yeah, just learned a whole lot of new things. Yeah, interesting role.
Totally.
Because you're one-on-one with farmers. And we had a project, the Pearl Project, which was funding from NZ just to help revitalize the pearl industry because things were a bit tough and tight. So they about 22 farmers had a kind of like a golden handshake from NZA. They had to
golden handshake.
Well,
I like that metaphor description that the way you're saying it.
They had to pay a bit of money towards it, but it was literally a grant where 80% of it was handshake.
Yeah.
And they got to pick what they wanted. So at that time, because farmers were at different scales, they had different needs.
Yes, true. I get what you mean. So you can't just give someone the survival kit.
It doesn't,
because they might be at different stages of their like, so say someone, this is just a metaphor again, everyone, you get the survival kit, but hey, I'm at the band-aid stage, I'm not at the you gotta, how do you
so farmers would come up with their wish list and then we'll try and cull it down and sort it out and try and see what works best for both parties. So that hasn't come to a very good
oh, come on, little steps. You've done so much pioneering. You know what this is, okay?
But the project itself hasn't.
It's just little steps. You've done so many pioneering things. This is just another one for you to like.
Yeah, so
we got this.
So
And slowly.
it's great. So Manihiki, even though you've been isolated and you go through shit periods where you might not have any,
I want to go for 6 months now.
might not have any bread, might not have any flour, you might not have any dishwashing liquid, you might not have just those little things you take for granted. Forever running out of onions and potatoes, that's okay. I yearned for yogurt, and then I thought, oh, just make your own, just make your own.
Yeah.
But yeah, those little things, and then just learning to live with what you have,
Yeah.
and appreciating that, and utilizing what you have, and improving on what you can do with it,
And not being wasteful.
Yeah, we're always conserving, always. You learn to do so many different things. Save your plastic, not just throw it away, reuse it. And you know, one thing we used to do, you know, the packets with the rice, you know, rice.
Oh, yes.
So they do this wonderful thing where they make poke and they prep it and put it in those things and boil it in the water. So you're kind of like poaching it in the plastic.
Okay.
And then you just freeze it. So when you want it, you bring it out, thaw it out, warm it up again, and then there's your poke. But you use the plastic thing to put your as little packets to put your poke thing. And I looked at them and I thought, wow.
Yeah.
Don't waste. Don't waste anything.
Don't waste anything. I'm writing that down because
You're always looking for a way to use something again.
Yeah. Don't waste anything.
Yeah. It's amazing. I love going. I want to go back.
I want to come too now.
Yeah, come over. Come.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to come too.
You can pick your room.
I'll have to I don't mind. I'll work for my whatever because I know it's like $2,500 to get up there. Otherwise, I'll go on the boat and I'll see you there in 2 weeks' time.
I'll come with you on the boat.
Right?
Yeah.
A journey.
But
Thank
you just appreciate, you come back here to Rarotonga, you appreciate everything. People don't understand how the Pāinua live. No idea until you go up there.
Yeah.
Everything is so precious.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Nice chatting with you.
No, such a pleasure. Thank you so much. We're gonna wrap up for today, and then I'd like you, please, in 6 months or a year, and how am I going to go to Manihiki, everybody, with Rangi? Okay, right? I like putting stuff to the universe. I like putting stuff to the universe.
Yes.
We talked about so much today. Freelance chefing, pearl farming, artisan, don't waste anything, scholarships like Holland, pearl meat ceviche.
Oh, the other thing that
You
I
know,
used to, the other thing
Far out.
that I also didn't mention is that I started doing my own pearl jewelry.
I've got that little note there.
Yeah.
Pearl jewelry. I've got that little note
I
there.
don't have pearls with me at the moment, but that was something that I got into because I wanted to try something different. We were exporting quite a lot to Hong Kong or Singapore, but the dollar wasn't really fetching good. And I just said, can I just give it a go?
Yeah.
So a tutor came over to Manihiki to train people, so people putting their hands up. I'll do it. And my husband said to me, you know, it's in the other village. He goes, I said, yes. And he says, you know, it means that someone will have to pick you up late at night. Yes. You know, it's going to be rough at night coming back. I mean, yes. He goes, it better be worth it. And it was.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
So I'm quite pleased with.
So you did that jewelry course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I started doing my own line of jewelry. And I loved it because I'm a bit of an arty-farty person. I like creating and working with different things like rito and metal. Yeah, anything like that. So
I can just imagine your workshop, man.
Yeah, I have a little room dedicated.
Yeah, I can just imagine. Yeah, you're amazing with little workshop,
Yeah.
Manihiki.
I love it. Yeah. And that's me.
Well, I'm going to Manihiki, everybody. Okay. And if you get to go to Manihiki and if you get to spend time with Rangi
Yeah.
as well, you're lucky and you're privileged. Thank you so much, Rangi.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right. That's us.
That's us for today, everyone. Thank you for letting us into your lives and letting us share with you some stories from home. Stay well, stay safe. Nokone ia matou I tunu te varovaro. This is your host, Chantal, Kia ora podcast, and my guest today, Rangi Mitaera Johnson. Thank you. Kia manuia. Good luck. Airera for now. Bye.